Minister. As you said, huge borrowing has been required to support the economy in the pandemic, with the 4.6 billion coming to Scotland. You also tweeted about independence this morning. So can I ask, how would an independent Scotland manage such crisis borrowing in its early years, perhaps its first decade, while not having its own currency, which of course is the plan of the SNP's Growth Commission? Because economists and indeed critics within your independence movement have said that without control of monetary policy or an effective central bank, your plan, the sterlingisation plan, could make borrowing more difficult or more expensive. So as well as explaining how we'd managed to secure this level of borrowing, can you tell us, does this crisis mean you could now rethink this Growth Commission policy?
I'll come on to the arguments about independence when we're focusing on the arguments about independence. I've got a pandemic to deal with right now, and that's what I'm going to focus on doing. But in short, just in a couple of sentences, maybe the way to answer the question of how would an independent Scotland cope with borrowing is to look at how independent Ireland already does it, or independent Denmark or New Zealand or any of the other countries across the world that are having to borrow right now. Some of them bigger than Scotland, some of them smaller than Scotland, some of them the same size to Scotland. So maybe there's some lessons to be learned there as well. But I'm going to focus on the pandemic right now, because I think that's what people across the country expect me to do. Tom Gordon from the Herald.
First Minister, they actually have their own currencies though, so that's not.
Look, Chris, I am doing a COVID briefing right now. There will be plenty of opportunities in the future for me to get into debates and answer questions about currency, about borrowing rates. That's not what this briefing is for, and I don't think it is what most of the people watching it want to hear. So I've said what I'm going to say. I've tried to answer your question to some extent. You'll get plenty of opportunities in the future to ask me and grill me and scrutinise me and all of these things. And when we get to that stage, I'll be delighted to engage with that. But right now, this is a briefing about COVID, and that's what I'm going to try to stick to.
But it's you who brought up both independence and borrowing today, so that's why I asked you the question.
And I tweeted earlier on in response to the Prime Minister's visit that is different to standing here in a Scottish Government building doing a briefing about COVID. And I'm making the obvious point that independent countries the world over borrow money, and an independent Scotland would be in no different position. What I'm saying to you is, if you want to get into the guts and the detail and the intricacies of that, now is not the time for that. I'm more than happy to do that on future occasions. Tom Gordon from the Herald.
Hello there, First Minister. Can I take you back